there's a huge difference between leadership and management. So when I think about leadership, I actually don't think that. I don't think about the person who's pulling a whole heap of people along. I actually see chaos and a bit of a mess, but I actually also see people getting in and getting things done. So I think leadership sometimes, when it's presented, gives us the feeling that that's what we have to do. But when I think about the leadership steps I've taken in my life, I think I'm the person up the back in the blue tracky pants, and yet I still see myself as a leader. So when I first started doing leadership a long time ago, these were some of the quotes that came up for me when I started looking around. And then when you go further, so these are some of the great people that have led change in our world. But when you look at Wikipedia, it's got another definition. The Oxford has something else. The Urban Dictionary says something else, often very rude. But there are multiple definitions out there about what leadership is. But I always see leadership visually, and that's for me what leadership is. People putting up their hand and saying, I'm going to have a go and I'm going to implement some change. And I also believe that leadership is about defining the future. That you have to be bold enough to say that's where I want to go, but you need to say that in chorus with other people. Then you need to work out how you're going to get there. And you also have to ensure that the people who have helped you do that get there with you, that you don't leave them behind. The thing about leadership is it's never about one person. It's always about a group of people. And Margaret Mead sums it up by saying, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So when you're thinking about your business or your organisation, these are the things that I believe are important around leadership. That if you look at it from a personal level, leadership is about it being untimed. So those people in those photos haven't got a use-by date. They do our programs, but there's no set time for them to step into a leadership role, whatever that might be. But they've all been supported. So when you're thinking about generating leadership in your organisation, don't have an expectation that if somebody goes off and does something that tomorrow they're going to come back and step into the limelight, because they may not. They might, but they may not. Ensure that they're well supported, so that they've got people around them who know what they've done or are doing, that they're acknowledged, so that somehow you acknowledge that people are stepping into learning something about themselves, that you create some pathways, that once somebody has learnt something, that you open up opportunities within your workplace or your organisation for them to try some things out. And that there is some expectation that if you're going to invest in people taking on some leadership, that you're going to invest time in them to reach their goals. From a business perspective, my encouragement around how leadership happens in a workplace is that it doesn't happen by accident, that you have to be very organised. If you want that young girl in your office to take the next step up and take on some responsibility, you actually have to help her make it happen. She's not going to do it, or the young bloke is not going to do it without some assistance from you. That it needs to be part of a plan, that people see that there's opportunities in your business to take on new roles of leadership and bringing things into the business, that you have to set an example, that actually this is about leadership, this is about stepping into new spaces and taking on some change, that it's embedded. The people, when they walk into your organisation, know that there is going to be an expectation that they're not just going to sit, that there will be some expectations that they're going to move on, and that they're rewarded. And then the last thing for me, because that's where I work, is the importance of understanding leadership at an industry level. And at an industry level, I mean representational, organisational. That an industry can't expect leadership and change and innovation to happen unless they actually want the resources and do something about it for longer than 10 years. That's my rule of thumb. That you have to be investing in people taking steps into new spaces for at least 10 years. A 3-year funding cycle is not going to do it. I know that some of us get confused about the two concepts about leadership and management, but leadership is leadership. It's not management. Some managers are terrific leaders, but they're quite different concepts. But over the last 20 years, the most common words that come up when I ask people to think about what is the most integral concept around leadership, the words that have been always there and are the most common are communication. That if you're wanting to do leadership, if you're wanting to make change, you have to get your shit together about communication. You actually have to work out how to communicate with the people that you need to be communicating with, and that might be multiple strategies. You must have a vision that you can communicate. Because if you've got a vision that you can't communicate, then it's just words zipping around in your head. And you have to have some integrity around those two things. So if you're a business owner in this room and you're a fruit grower, you need to start thinking about how am I communicating? What's the vision for my business? And does anybody bloody know? Or is it just on my desk? And then, after we've done that, we ask people to talk about what do they think they need to do some work around. So if you're thinking about how do I get people in our organisation or our business to do some development around their leadership, then they talk about confidence, they talk about the capacity to speak publicly, even if it's in your small Monday morning meetings with 3 of you. The capacity to give people the opportunity to learn how to speak in a public forum, small or large. That they need to build networks, and for innovative, leader-edge businesses, those networks have to be beyond your farm edges, your fences. You need to be building the networks out and sharing some stuff. So when I think about leadership, I'm thinking about people who are courageous, who choose to do something different and to encourage people to come along with them. Or they have been in a room where other people have said that's what the future could look like, and they've been able to help people get there. But I think it's also about the ability to switch on your brain and think differently. So innovation is very closely linked to our ability to imagine stuff. And great leaders let people imagine it.